Hello everyone, welcome to Morning Chess Kids. Today I show you the gameplay by Mikhail and Leonardo, and this beautiful game complete in only 25 moves. And let's see how the game play. The game starts with the pawn to e4, c5, knight to f3, then e6 was played, and the white continue with g3. And here you have the closed Sicilian with the G3 sidelines. Then D5 was played. After this, the pawn just captured the pawn, E takes D5, and the pawn captured back, E takes D5. Then the white played D4, and knight C6 was played. And this is the first 5 move, and you can see that the white has developed both of the pawn up, and this allowed the bishop to be actively played in the game. So after this, bishop g2 was played, and this bishop allowed the king to go for a short castling. Then knight c6 was played, and now the white go for a short castling. Then the pawn c takes d4 from the black, and now the knight just capture, and then the bishop to e7 was played to allow the black to go for a short castling and bring the king to a safety position. After this, knight c3 was played, and now the black just go for a short castling. Then rook to e1, and the black just develop the bishop to g4, and this bishop is attack the queen and being protected by the knight. So here you can see that the white is slightly better, and both trying to develop the pieces up into the board as fast as possible. And the game continue with the queen to d3, and trying to have the idea to attack the pawn at h7. Also, the bishop can later be active and trying to attack the knight. After this, rook c8 was played, then the knight to f5 from the white. So this knight is active and able to capture the pawn, or able to go here to check, and we have a lot of idea. And now we bring the more pieces to attack the king. So the black just capture the knight to minimize the attack from the white. Another suggestion that the black can try also, such as play bishop to c5, trying to attack the pawn at f2. And if you play a3, then a queen to b6, this will remain the black to be a slightly better, with this idea of attacking the pawn, and this bishop will not able to move as the queen is attacking the pawn at b2. So back at this position, the best way for the white to play would be push the pawn to h3 to attack the bishop. So for example, after attack the bishop, now if the knight goes to b4 and attack the queen, and also try to attack the pawn at c2, and you have the idea of fork the rook, so the queen can just move to d2, and this will just remain the white in the slightly better position. So in the actual game, knight f5 was played, and here the black just captured the knight, and after capture the knight, the queen recapture it back, and this lead the position to the equal. Then the black just push the d4 to trying to attack the knight, and now the knight goes to d5 trying to attack the knight or also the bishop. So after this move, the knight just capture the knight, and now a bishop capture it back, and after this the knight to b4 trying to attack the bishop, and at the same time attack the pawn at c2, and also have the idea of fork the rook. So bishop b3 was played, and this bishop retreat and to protect the pawn at c2. After this, rook c5 was played, trying to attack the queen, and now the queen goes to e4 and keep pressuring the black, such as attack the bishop and also have the idea to attack the pawn at h7, and this bishop at c1 will later be very active. After this, bishop f6 was played, and now a bishop to b2, trying to attack the knight and also attack the rook. After this, knight c6 was played, and at this position you still cannot go to here because the knight is still protecting the square. So the best way is to remove the knight, then you'll be winning a piece. So rook a to d1 from the white, and now the queen goes to d7, trying to protect the knight and develop the queen. Then bishop to f4 was played, and now after this move, queen h3 was played, and this is a question mark move, and this lead the bishop to d6 and attack the rook, and will be winning and will be better in this position, and this rook will be forked. So the suggestion that you can play after this is to move the knight to a5, trying to attack the bishop, and the square at d6 is still guarded by the queen, therefore you cannot go to d6 and fork the two pieces. So knight a5 is playable, and the black is okay in this game, and this is queen h3 is a mistake, and at this move 23 it gives the white a clear better position. So after this move, instead of moving the bishop to d6, if you play bishop to d6, then the black will just goes to rook h5, trying to capture and check the king. However, this position the black could not checkmate the white, so you can just use the bishop to capture, and after capture the check, then the king move to 1. Then this position you just continue to check h1 or queen to h3 to keep on the check and go for the exchange. For example, if you go queen to h1, then the white will just capture the queen. After capture, then the rook capture, then the king to e2, and this force the black to exchange. After capture the rook, then now you can use rook to capture or the king capture. So if you rook to capture and then the king capture, then at this position, after a series of exchange, and the white will be leading ahead with the rook bishop versus knight bishop. And back to this position, the queen to h3, you can just use the queen to block. For example, if the queen moves to h3, then you can move the queen to g2 and force the black to go for the exchange. So after capture, then you use the king to capture, and now the king just capture the bishop, then the rook you goes to h1 to force the exchange with the rook. And if the rook move away, then the white will just win additional pawn, and this will give white a clearly better. So After rook capture, then you rook capture, and again at this position you will have the endgame of rook bishop versus knight bishop, and white is clearly better after the exchange. So, but in the actual game, after queen h3, the white made a queen to e8. As you can see, all the queen move will be bad except queen to e8, and this is one of the brilliant sacrifice. Queen to e8 was played, and this forced the idea to give the black to capture the queen. For example, if you use the rook to capture the queen, then you have a rook capture it back, and you have a back rank checkmate. So the queen cannot be captured. If you capture, you have a very simple back rank checkmate. So therefore, in this game, after this move, the best move to save the position, it will be G5, and this will keep the black in the game. So if you play a pawn G5, then the bishop will continue to play bishop to d6 and attack the rook, and will fork the rook. So after bishop to d6, then rook will capture the queen, then you have a rook capture the rook and check the king, and now king go up to g7, then you bishop check, then the king can goes to d6, and after this bishop just capture the rook, and here the knight goes to e5, and after this you have a endgame of a double rook and versus the queen, while the bishop, two bishop and the knight bishop will be the same point. So at this move you have a double rook, and white will be better in this position. In another move you can move is g6. G6, this will give white a clearly winning game, because after bishop to d6, then it will win the blue rook. And if you move the knight to defense or to block it, the white will just capture. So if you move the knight to e7, then the rook will continue to take the knight, and if the bishop capture it, then the queen will just capture, and this will attack the rook and checkmate the king. And if you move the rook to c8, then the rook will just capture the pawn and keep on the attack, and now the rook can just continue to attack in f5, or you also can attack at the h4. So after this queen h5 played, then the pawn continue to attack, then the queen continue to play b5, then you can play a queen to f6, and you bring the bishop to e5, then you have a very simple checkmate at g7. So everything is locked up for the white. Another suggestion that if you play a g6, and this queen still cannot be captured, so after bishop to d6, and now if you capture the queen, rook takes the queen, then you will have a very simple idea of rook takes and check the king. And if the king moves to g7, then you will continue to use the bishop to f8 and check the king and prevent the king to move to h6. So this will be a discover check. after this bishop check, then the king has only 2 moves to play. So either of these 2 moves, it will lead white to the winning with a discover checkmate. So if you move the king to G8, then bishop to H6, and this will be a discover checkmate with the rook, and now the king cannot come to G7 as being controlled by the bishop. And if you move the pawn to H5, as you can see, this H pawn move is also be a very bad move, and this will lead white to mate. So if your H5 was played, then the bishop will just capture and attack the king. So after bishop capture and check the king, and again you have a limited place for the king to move, as the rook cannot be captured, is being pinned by the queen. If the king to H7, then the bishop to G6 continue the check, and now the king cannot come out, only can go down. And if you move the king to H8, the queen will capture the rook and check. And if you move the king to G8, then you use the queen capture, and after king capture, you have a back rank checkmate with the rook. So in the actual game, after queen to E8, H6 was played, and this is one of a tactical blunder, and this causes white to win. Bishop takes F7 and check the king. So after bishop takes the F7 and check the king, and the rook cannot be captured because it's being pinned by the queen. And here the king just move in the actual game, move to H7, and after this the white do not capture the rook first. Instead, the white go to G6 with the bishop G6 check the king, and this forces the king to move to G6 or H8. So after this move, king to G8 was played, and now you have another beautiful sacrifice with the queen. Queen takes the king, queen takes the rook and check the king, and after the king capture, then the rook to E8 and check the king, and protected by the bishop, and you have a back rank checkmate. And this is a really beautiful checkmate, and the king cannot move to anywhere. And with this, thank you.